Good morning, Pat. If you're wondering why you aren't hearing anything, it's I think we're waiting on something. Maybe our chair. I'm not sure. Morning, everyone.
The chair's here today. We were just waiting to make sure that we had quorum.
Oh, good.
And we don't quite have quorum at this point. However, I think we'll start anyway, conscious of people's time, and maybe somebody will join us. Otherwise, this becomes a meeting for information rather than a meeting where we can make decisions. So welcome, everybody. My name is Mike Rutan, and this is the regular agenda Thursday, November 16th for the Alberni Valley Regional Airport Advisory Committee. I'd like to call the meeting to order and recognize that we're doing our business today on the traditional unceded territory of the Hupetchisitt and Sishot First Nations. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed to YouTube on the Regional District website. And for those who are not only live streaming, but in present actually, in the boardroom here, this is a bit of a experiment for me, never having done a hybrid meeting before, with some people live, some people coming in on Zoom, and some people present in body in the actual meeting. So we push the button to speak that's on our microphone, and when you're done, make sure that you hit the button again to mute yourself, and then it'll turn off. We'll just go around and have people introduce themselves, please. And we'll start with Cindy Solda here on my right.
Good morning, everybody. Cindy Solda. I represent the city of Port Alberni and I'm a city councillor.
Brun, General Manager of Community Services.
Harley Wiley, Sishot Elected Council. Mike Yan, Fire Chief, Sproul Lake Fire Department.
And Alicia Fazer, Airport Project Planner with the ACRD.
Okay, and from home? Start with Shelley.
Oh, sure. Shelley Crest, Port Alberni Port Authority. Thanks.
Thank you. And Mark?
Airport Manager, Alberni Clayoquot Regional District.
And you're not raising your hand to speak at this point, I'm thinking, Mark, right?
No, it's that this is the position of comfort at the moment. I'm a little laid up right now.
Well, I'm sorry to say that, but fortunately, it's just an arm, and you're not, sick.
Exactly.
Okay, then, committee, we do have an agenda. I'm sorry. One more, Pat.
The chair, yeah, there's a couple or a few others of us that are online here. Pat Deacon, City of Port Alberni Economic Development.
Welcome, Pat.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have an agenda where we're looking at minutes, correspondence, it's really interesting stuff, and requests for a decision, and then, of course, reports from staff and any late business that might happen to occur. A motion, is there anything else that we need to add, Cindy?
I'd like to talk about the trees at the airport under new business, I guess, and wherever you would like to put it. And also I would like to talk about the wildfires and the pilots for the airport. I'll get more into it.
Okay, I think the trees will be part of a staff report. Okay, a motion to approve the agenda then, please, Cindy, and seconder. Shelley, thank you. Anybody opposed? Then the motion is carried. Okay, and we have the minutes of the last advisory committee meeting from held on August 24th. Would normally have been held in September, but we moved it to August 24th because of the UBCM. Any corrections, any concerns? Seeing none, in that case, a motion to approve the minutes from August 24th. Cindy, is there a seconder? Oh, Shelley, thank you. Sorry. Anybody opposed? Then carried. Okay, then we do have some correspondence for information, and it's very interesting correspondence, and it's from Dave Frank. And I'll just read it out because it's quite interesting, and it conveys just how busy people are. And it's a letter that's gone to the CAO of the ACRD. It says, I'm very pleased to officially inform you that the Alberni Valley Regional Airport has been selected to receive the historic William Templeton Award. Congratulations. William Templeton was YVR's first airport manager. Last year's winner was the Pitt Meadows Airport, which has undergone an amazing transformation. Your selection reflects the recognition by the region of the importance of the airport to the community, the economy, and the fact that the region chose to support airport enhancement financially. This is a great story to tell. Now, the bad news. A member of our team dropped the ball, informing you, and I didn't catch it. The Silver Wings Industry and Scholarship Awards celebration is this Thursday at the Vancouver Convention Center West, which was last week. Oh, yeah, several weeks ago, actually. There are details and a complimentary registration for one person and a guest. It gets worse. We need raw video footage and or photos about your career, even material from an iPhone. So our extremely talented editor can pull together a 2-minute video about your facility and its importance to the community. Detailed guidance is attached. Do not hesitate to reach out to Trina for fantastic assistance. The good news is there are no speeches, and the video takes the place of that. So we did receive an award, and this award that we were given, let's just see. It's a mini award. But there is a big award that we get to keep for the year. We get to keep the mini award. So in which case, when we do get the big award, we will have a more formal ceremony and show everybody. But this is a replica of the big award. And it is really important for us as a community to receive this recognition, because we made a decision as a community that we would invest $8 million in an expansion of our airport and all of the possibilities that go along with that. And it's amazing the progress that we've made since that decision was made, and we'll get some further reports on that later on today. So, question, Jay.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think that summarizes it marvelously, and we really would like to celebrate everyone who put so much time and energy into this. We know many members of the committee have been doing this and putting their time in for a number of years. And I also just wanted to put it out to ask, as we work on a press release and coordinating an event to do a photo opportunity and then, communicate this out to the community, I was just wondering if there was any other sort of champions of that project that we want to include when we're doing that event.
Yeah, definitely the the people who are supporting airplanes out of the air at the airbase or at the airport itself, represented by Darren Hansen. They would be important. I don't know if members of the committee have other suggestions, but it'd be great to send them in to Jenny if you've got other suggestions as to who should be included. Because the airport, the expansion of the airport was supported by many people within the valley and heavily by the business community. It's an important driver, and so we can think about that and get you the information. Cindy.
I believe also the staff that have been involved with the airport from day one should be really recognized. Without them, it'd be a little harder. So I just want to make sure that's included in there.
Yeah.
And when we do the press release, are we going to wait for the bigger trophy to come?
I think so.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you.
But this is kind of cute, actually. Okay. Now we have a request for a decision which we actually can't make today, and it has to do with lease application fees. So we'll have to put that off for the next meeting, I guess. Okay, let's discuss it in that case and find out what it is, and we just won't be able to make a decision.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think it is worth it since it's on the agenda, and I think people have reviewed it as well. Mark, did you want to jump in before I do an overview? You're on mute.
Just really quickly going back to the William Templeton Award. The ACRD has received that award 3 times in its history. So it started in 1961. The ACRD was recognized in 1992 for the basically establishment of the current AVRA airfield, Charlie Bravo Sierra 8. We were recognized once again in 2017 for putting lighting at the Tofino Airport. And I have to admit, in 2017, I went to the award ceremony and I hinted that, we have great things happening at AVRA. I was expecting something in 2018 or 2019. COVID got in the way. Pitt Meadows did a fantastic job on a new terminal building. But we were recognized in 2023. So that makes 3 times that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District has been recognized for this award. And we are the highest, or we are the most recognized region in British Columbia for receiving this award. I just thought that you need to know that because that is a very rare occurrence. The runner-up for us is basically Abbotsford with 2 nominations, or not nominations, but awards. That's all for William Templeton. The award is worth waiting for. We've had it in the ACRD before in 2017. It's a big sort of Stanley Cup bowl assembly, and our name is etched in the bottom of it. So it's worthy of a proper press release.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Mark, did you wish to make a comment on the lease application fees? Sorry, Mark, you're muted.
I'll leave that for Jenny.
Okay, thank you. Pat, Pat, did you have something you wanted to say?
Just that I have a binder related to that. There's a lot of names in there. I'll take a look through and send them on to Jenny as ones that should be considered when we're putting that together.
Okay, thank you. All right, Jenny, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so we did have a report on lease application fees for the Alberni Regional Airport. And one of the reasons we were looking at this is last year we put together an application process and fee system. We basically formalized leases out at the Long Beach Airport. Now we have a lot more space right now available, and it was we were getting a lot of development pressure. We put a lot of time into developing leases, both preliminary, which goes to the committee level, and then once that's approved, then it goes, we basically flesh out the details and then take it to the board. It's proven to be an extremely effective system for a number of reasons. One is that we are recovering some of the staff time, and I say only some because these brand new lease applications tend to be very complicated usually. But we do want to try to recover some of that time, but also just the process itself is really useful. So there's a clarity. Applicants know what to expect, how it's going to be reviewed, who's going to review it when are they dealing with staff, when is it going to committee. Also, because we decided on a two-phase process, it sort of allows everyone to look at it sort of just as a concept before anyone invests too much time, whether that's the applicant or staff, to review all the details. And so that just goes to the committee. We have to put together a very vague, ideas. This is sort of what we're doing. We make sure it aligns with the land use plan and zoning, and there's no big red flags that would stop an application in its tracks. If the committee supports the application, then the applicant is able to make an application for a formal process. We go through all the details, create the lease, and it is basically tied up in a nice little bow when it finally gets to board, and there's no issues. And then when board approves it, it proceeds. So we think this process works really well because we've already spent a lot of the energy and time to develop it. We think it would be good to have consistency to implement it at the AV airport as well. We have some turnover in the leases, so we do think that we will see a couple lease applications coming in, but we also think that there's going to soon be, we get interest, and we really want to start encouraging the, verbal interest that comes to Mark or myself. And if we have a process to say, hey, why don't you just quickly, easily fill out this preliminary application, we can take it to the committee. And I think it would help us to encourage applicants to really sort of, specify their interest and start getting them on the table and work them through the system. And I think that there is going to be a lot more future opportunity. So we wanted to bring this to the committee. If we proceeded with something like this, in order to charge the fees, we will just need to update the bylaw. That's why we need a real resolution. But then staff-wise, it's just procedure, and we can basically put together the frequently asked questions. We already have the templates for the application forms. We would put that on our website. So I'm happy to answer any questions and hear feedback from the committee, whether they support that or not. Well, one other thing, I was thinking about this, and I did consider for AVRA, maybe something slightly different that the committee may want to consider. So I mentioned in the options considered that the committee may want to strongly encourage people to express their interest, in which case maybe we do not want to set a fee for the preliminary lease application. So if you're just considering it and you want to do that, so we'd still have the application, just the fee would be zero for applying and coming to committee level. Once that's approved and they want to proceed with that, I would still encourage the committee to consider a application for the formal application, because it is so much time involved in that, and it would be good to recoup some of those costs. Okay, now if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I do actually have one question. And that is that AVRA is supported by the taxpayers in the valley. And the expansion is continuing to be paid for by taxpayers in the valley. So could it be seen that taxpayers are already supporting AVRA? And how would that impact fees, and how would that be seen in light of fees? Are we charging on top of charging?
So we do have a huge component of our costs are covered through taxation. We do receive lease revenue as well. We also receive revenue from fuel, but we also have a lot of costs with fuel. So, we might have a very minor amount that actually is let's say, in the black when it comes to fuel. Those are our three main sources of revenue besides grants. So every time we choose not to receive or not set up other methods for generating revenue through user fees, whether it's an application fee or any other user fee, parking fees, etc., then the cost to operate the airport, whether it's staff time, which is a cost, or operation time or anything, it is then the tax is the sort of catch-all, right? So then we increase taxes in order to cover our costs. Oh, and we have Dan.
Oh, we've got quorum.
Oh, now we have quorum. Welcome, Dan.
Maybe. Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions anytime that would be convenient.
Okay, Shelley, go ahead.
Great, thanks. So I think I understand that other airports are charging a similar fee process. Is that correct?
Yes, so it's very typical for leases, whether it's at an airport or if you're doing a land development, there are usually fees associated with this kind of work when you're working with local governments because of the staff time involved. So we've looked at other comparative fees and we're suggesting fees that are in line with that.
Great. My other couple of, I guess one is a comment around preliminary fees. Do you find that people make a preliminary application and then back out, or if they make a preliminary application, do they tend to be quite serious about it? The reason I raise that issue is, just a question of whether there is some component of, making sure it's a serious good faith offer in the preliminary fee.
Chair, yes. So we especially were having challenges at the Long Beach Airport. That was one of the reasons we moved forward with this. There is so much pressure on minimal land available out there. So you can understand that it's kind of a heightened issue. And so many people before we had the system would be, I can't find anywhere to rent. And then they would call Mark and say, Mark, what do you have for space? And then he would have to spend, time showing them what we have available for land. And and those were just very frivolous inquiries. There was no seriousness. And in that case, that $500, when we said, great, you know what? We have a process. As soon as you're sure you want to do that, you can pay the fee and we'll come and talk to you and we'll spend tons of time with you working on this. And it really reduced a lot of those frivolous inquiries. For AVRA, I don't know if it is as necessary to stop frivolous inquiries, again, because we don't have as much pressure on the system. I still think the process is important. That's why I really did say it's optional whether we want to put a fee in for the preliminary portion if we want to actually just encourage more people to consider it.
Great, thank you. And I guess I was sort of wondering if there's been some thought to charging for the preliminary fee, and then if it doesn't go forward, having some process for refund of that fee, or alternatively to charge for preliminary fee and say if it goes to a final application process, we'll put that towards the final application fee. Just something to consider around that. And my last question is at this point is, have you considered a fee for renewal of leases, given that, as I understand it, the purpose behind these fees is in part to deal with staff time? And I would think renewal of leases would take time as well. Thanks.
Chair, we have thought about that because of those costs, but what we're trying to do is build the cost for staff time into the actual lease. So because the application process may or may not go through, if we don't have a lease, then we aren't recovering that initial cost. And the staff time for setting up a new lease, much different than renewal. Renewal with an existing leaseholder, it is minimal. We feel like we do recoup that through the lease fees themselves.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Any other questions? Cindy.
I just want to say I really do like what Shelley has mentioned about charging prior and then taking it off the actual, if they do lease, right? And I think that's a really good way to put that. And if they don't, well, they've lost the money, right? We're going to get serious people interested. So I think it would be
Yeah.
really worthwhile exploring that.
Yep. Okay. Well, now that we, Harley,
I'd just like to say that I understand what she's saying and I agree with that too. Thank you.
thank you. Now that we have quorum, we actually could pass the motion. So is there someone would like to make the motion that the Alberni Valley Regional Airport Advisory Committee recommend that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors approve amending the Alberni Valley Regional Airport Fee and Charges Bylaw number R1035/2021 to include a preliminary lease application fee of $500 and a final lease application fee of $1,100 per application. Cindy. Okay, you move it. Okay.
I'll move that motion. Would that incorporate what Shelley has been? I don't think that incorporates what Shelley has.
I don't think it does either. I think we'd need to change. Would you like to change the motion a little bit to reflect that?
I'm going to pass it over to Shelley because it's going to be exactly what she wants in there, and I'll pass it over and let Shelley do an amendment to it.
Okay.
Thanks, Cindy. I would just propose that that piece stand with the proviso that the staff consider how that preliminary, or consider that the preliminary fee may be in part or in whole used to offset against the final application or something to that effect, that some consideration be given to looking at some sort of mechanism around the preliminary fee. I know I'm not being very articulate, but I think we just add a piece on there and let staff decide, because I think it is an operational issue that they will know best. Does that make sense at all?
Jenny is saying yes, it does make sense. She can work with that.
Oh, good. Thanks, Jenny. All right, I would make that motion and ask that that piece be added onto it. Thanks.
That would be an amendment to the motion that we consider some flexibility.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cindy, you're okay with that? Okay. All those in favor? And anybody opposed? It's carried. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay. Now we come to reports. And Mark, I think we're going to turn this over to you. Thank you.
Sounds good. I'll just run on a couple things that we've been working on since the last meeting as part of the AVRA update. As if anybody's been out to the field recently, you'll notice that it's looking quite nice. We finished our summer cut. It was completed in late September. We ran into fire danger this year, so we couldn't get it completed in time in the spring when we usually do it. We're gonna have to change our procedures a little bit just to try and accommodate what seems to be a recurring weather pattern in the valley. But we were able to finish it off late September. In regards to OLS, our occupant license to cut, an OLTC, has just finished the referral phase with Flinroe. That was as of yesterday, November 15th. My understanding is that we've received reports in from the various government agencies. I don't know about the public input on that yet, but we should be able to move forward with this hopefully in the next couple of weeks once those get reviewed. So that is moving ahead quite nicely. It's been close to 5 years, so it's about time. And a lot of thanks to Michael McGregor, who's been carrying the load of this one on our behalf. Christmas tree harvesting is in progress right now. So basically, Christmas trees around the Namint Forest Service Road. That's the first gate. Used to be the Green Max gate as you come into the airport on the right-hand side. We have a NOTAM in place for aviators. There will be harvesting in process, so there could be trucks going back and forth. So we have a NOTAM in place for that for the next couple of weeks. We've also had a Transport Canada investigation regarding a frequency change at the airport. This has been brought forward through the Alberni Valley Soaring Association. They've had frequency congestion at our site with Powell River. Powell River is about 35 miles away, and we get what's called skip or bounce between the two control zones. And what was happening is the gliders were not able to input a position report because there was too much activity happening on the Powell River channel. They just couldn't get their voice in edgewise. So Transport Canada has started the process of changing our frequency, our aerodrome frequency. It's currently 123.0. I've got a letter on request through Transport Canada. We'll be forwarding that back to them, giving our blessing to go ahead and review this process with Industry Canada. Industry Canada is responsible for issuing licenses for basically aerodrome frequencies. We've done this process in the past with Transport Canada at the Tofino site, and it took basically 2 changes before they got the frequency corrected. And I don't think we'll have the same problem at the AV site, but in Tofino's situation, we were getting skip or bounce as far away as Northern California, just coming up the coast. That was just coming in on our frequency, our newly assigned frequency by Industry Canada. So it could take up to a year for this process. It's moving along quite well at the moment. We were informed about this about a month ago, and I've got the letter from Transport Canada, so that's the next step. Now it goes to Industry Canada from here. Our fuel dispenser, I know Jenny was talking about being in the black. Well, no, you're not in the black with your fuel system, sorry. We basically spent close to $40,000 on a new fuel dispenser system, T-Pod 4000. We're looking at having that installed over the winter, so it'll be fresh to go, hopefully February of next year. This is a requirement due to the old technology of the previous dispenser being outdated and no longer being supported through the manufacturer. So we're going to have basically what'll look like a smartphone kiosk basically at the AVRA site for dispensing fuel. It'll also be able to, we're currently limited right now with our T-Pod 3000 to a $500 limit, and the new kiosk will be able to accept any denomination up to $10,000. I have no news on the CAN Pass application. I know we had a flurry of activity on that front, but that's fallen off for a little bit. I totally understand why, as well, with tightening government belts, but maybe Pat can talk on that one in just a bit. Our instrument approach procedure review is underway at AVRA. So that's a requirement every 4 years to maintain our instrument approaches. We are in the process right now of renewing our GNSS approaches and looking at lowering them once the trees have been removed. So once again, we have to remove the trees before we can get lower limits at the site. And just on a side note, there's a private organization that has developed WAS LPV approaches into Port Alberni. They've also done that for the Tofino site as well. This is a private individual or organization that's looking at putting an LPV into the Port Alberni site. It's interesting. They're willing to spend a lot of money to have these approaches developed and then maintained. And we may be able to take advantage of that if and when they get approved. So right now we have two sets of approaches being one traditional being reviewed and upgraded, and another LPV being considered with NAV Canada. And I'll stop there. And if there are any questions, I can hopefully answer them.
Any questions, Cindy?
With these two new approaches, one being reviewed and one looking at coming to Port Alberni, what does that do for us? What does that, it gives us more advantages, or what will that do?
So the approach that we're currently in the review process, that is our current instrument approaches. So we have approaches and departures on both of the runway headings. So that allows aircraft to land on instruments and also take off on instrumentation. And of course, they have to be in contact with COMOX for the departures. Arrivals, there's no requirement for pre-alerting because they're already in the system when they're arriving at Port Alberni. The quadrennial review every 4 years, we basically have to redesign the approaches to 75% to maintain their certification standard through Transport Canada and NAV Canada. So we are in basically month 2 of that process. And that way we can just continue those approaches on. We're doing that through a private a company, Direct Approach Inc. The WAS LPV is a higher standard approach, which will possibly get us lower to the ground eventually. Once again, depending on how the trees are removed and what schedule they're being removed at. That's being put in by a private company. They may or may not make those approaches public. Once again, it depends on what their business model is. But I think there's a good chance that we could get those publicly, brought on, depending once again what their business model is. So it's interesting that they're doing both Port Alberni and the Tofino Airport. The Tofino Airport is in a different situation where we have enough flow with NAV Canada that the service charges pay for the renewal and maintenance of the instrument approaches. So NAV Canada pays for all of the recertification work at the Tofino site. At our location, because our IFR traffic is so low, we have to pay to have those approaches maintained. So that's the difference between the two sites. NAV Canada is paid for approaches at Tofino and at Port Alberni because our contact is so low. We are paying for those approaches and the maintenance of those approaches. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, Harley, did you have a question?
Yes. To go back to the trees and the removal, are there a sizable number of trees that you're talking about?
So we have a lot of the trees that are in consideration have been part of a woodlot in the past that basically Flinro has taken over and is managing on our behalf. The volume of the vegetation is not great. Any kind of logging operation there would not be revenue neutral. It would still cost us to remove the fiber from those sites. So we have a lot of material that's below gang standard. So as you crest the hill, the first time you can see the airport coming on an airport road, you're going to have vegetation on the hillside to the left of you and vegetation on the immediate right. And that it's basically a lot of scrub. That still has to come down. And the only merchantable timber that would be involved would be a small strip in between the along Nemint Forest Service Road that has some old growth fir in it. But when I'm saying old growth fir, I'm talking probably 80 to 90 years old, and maybe out of that, probably 20 sticks. So even a logging truck worth.
Okay. I don't know if this is the time or the place to be bringing up a question like this, but I have to anyway so that I can leave knowing that I'd raised it. I think it was 6 years ago when I was working as administrator for Sishat. One of the staff brought up in one of the meetings with ACRD this very thing about the trees needing to be cut down, and it was going to be put to RFP. And the staff person who was there said, if there is going to be an RFP, you could, or she didn't say could, you should include Sishat. We have a forestry department. And that was discussed back and forth. And I recall the chairperson at that meeting said, well, look back and forth because it hadn't been considered. And in the end, he said, well, we could do that. And the staff person replied with, well, you should. And gave some examples of how some previous promises by, I don't know if it was ACRD or the airport, had been made, but hadn't been lived up to. And again, I'm just looking at what transpired in this meeting 6 years ago. Now, I think what I will do is talk with Jenny. We are planning on having a working meeting after this, and anything else, perhaps I could just send through email to you just to clarify. I don't want to take up a lot of time today. And like I said, I don't know if this is the right place or time to be bringing this up, but politics being what it is, and me being one of our council members, it's my job to speak to that in anything and everything that can move our community forward in partnership with other stakeholders. So I will leave it at, I'll send you an email, pose some questions and scenarios and examples, and we can communicate that way if that sounds okay to you.
Yeah.
Thank
Just
you.
something I can bring forward my past experience with working outside of the ACRD boundaries, basically working within the FLNRO controlled areas. We were able to get cut permitting through FLNRO. We were responsible for decking the timber, bringing the timber to the basically laydown area. But then FLNRO basically had control of the fiber source. They set up the sales. We received nothing from the sale. It was basically all done through FLNRO.
Okay, so sorry, Mark. Harley, go ahead.
Okay, so my question was, I'd like to communicate with you on this. That was what I'd asked.
Yep.
Thanks, Harley. Great questions. Mark, sorry, the trees situation. Are you still thinking that we'll be able to resolve it relatively quickly?
I'm hoping for basically a spring cut if all the stars align.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Shelley, you had a question.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to backpedal for a minute with a question around the localized performance with vertical guidance, the LPV, as I've just looked up system. Where would that navigation system be located if this private company brought that into the airport? Is it a physical instrumentation? Yeah.
Think of it as a popcorn trail, like a popcorn string in the air. So you're hitting waypoints that are both geolocated vertically and horizontally on a glide path into the airfield. There's no infrastructure on the ground at all.
Wow. Interesting. So for other people, for the public to pick up on that popcorn trail or the instrumentation navigation system around that, how do they link into that? Is there access provided just generally, and how is that coordinated?
Well, if it's done through a public access, like our current approaches, there are charts that you can access through Nav Canada, which will give you your position points and coordinates for each point and decision altitudes. In the LPV situation, because we don't know if it's going to be a public or private approach at the moment, if the provider or the actual people who are paying for that service want to make it public, they can do so. If they want to maintain it as a private approach for them only, that is totally within their discretion. But the work done.
Sure. Yeah, I got that point, but I just was curious how they provide access to the public if they choose to do that. It's just
They
it's,
would make it public as part of their application with NAV Canada.
I see. Thank you. Thanks. Interesting.
And Mark, it sounds like, sorry to just go back to these trees again. You're not seeing any showstoppers in there, so that's good news for us. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
No, that it's good. It is good news for us. Yes.
Thank you. And you mentioned when you talked about CanPass, you said Pat Deacon might have a little bit more information. So just double checking with Pat to see if you did have any further information on that.
More a question and a comment. So the question is, Mark, are you or Jenny, are either of you aware of anything having moved forward since Michael Agosti's note of mid-October?
No.
No. Okay. And Jenny?
No, sorry, Pat, no update.
Okay.
I think you might have
Okay.
the most up-to-date information.
Okay. So at that time, he had proposed next steps of a follow-up discussion with the CBSA VP's office to ensure that political consideration would be given to the essential service argument, because I'll back up a bit. It became apparent that the essential service argument was going to be a huge challenge for CBSA. So Michael was proposing to go to the VP's office and also to impress upon them that we're wanting to collaborate. I think, Mark, you had suggested that CBSA resources could be applied more heavily here once the hectic summer floatplane season had diminished somewhat. And then he was also going to finalize and file the application with CBSA's core service request team. I don't know if either of those were done. I happened to raise it with Gord Johns just yesterday. And, Gord said that he would, if we requested, connect us to a senior staff member at CBSA. And I mentioned to Gord that we would be concerned about having it viewed as a runaround or, go over the heads of the local crew, and a concern about creating some, challenges in future communication with them. And Gord just said if we wanted to go that way, he would make sure that his messaging was that we were very grateful for, I guess, the work of the local team and trying to resolve the matter. So I'm raising it to ask for Mark in particular and Jenny your feedback on a next step for us. Do we, tell Michael to go ahead with those two steps that he had proposed, or do we ask Gord to step in, and over to you.
Thanks, Pat. Through the chair, I think what I'll do is I'll just email the group who's been working on that, make sure we've got the most up-to-date information on where that's at, in case maybe Michael has done some work that we're not aware of behind the scenes. And we'll touch base. I typically lean towards following the the path that's in place and working with staff before we start to lobby or circumnavigate that, because you pointed out that sometimes that can actually not work in your favor. So I think we continue to push through the proper process until we find that maybe that isn't working, and then consider doing more lobbying work.
Okay, thank you everybody for that explanation. Any questions or clarification needed, Mitty? Okay. Thank you for your reports, everybody. Exciting news to know that we're almost at the end of this 5-year process to deal with the flight limitations. Okay, a motion to receive the report A on the operations and projects update. Harley? And second, Cindy? Thank you so much. Anybody opposed? Thank you so much, everybody. I don't know if we have anybody from the public that has come into the Zoom meeting. Nobody here in the boardroom. Then in that case, Cindy.
Just have one more thing.
Oh, sorry, wildfires.
Yes. I'm just kind of curious, have we done a debrief from the pilots that were using our airport during the fires? Because it would be interesting to know how they felt about our airport and get more or the pros and cons. And we're just kind of curious to know from the city how they all felt using it. We know how the local people feel that use the airport, but what about the out-of-towners?
Well, I do know from personal experience that airport became extremely important for getting people in and out of the valley. So it's clear how much it got used when we couldn't get by Cameron Lake. So people who used it were really grateful that we had an improved facility.
And I recognize that, but it would be really great to hear from the pilots that are from outside our community that have probably never used the airport before, or maybe they have. And we've had some upgrades and the future is looking bright. So it'd be kind of curious to see just some information.
It'd be nice to do a little survey. I don't know how you get the pilots, but
Yeah, I don't know, Mark, maybe if you have comments you want to add to that. I'm just trying to run in my head how we would go about doing something like that.
It would be a little challenging to do that, actually. The best time to do that, of course, would be in the heat of the moment, but we didn't have the capacity at that time to do that. We did have a lot of good reports, and honestly, the weather patterns that we had during the Cameron Lake fire were the best you could hope for. The airport, the valley was basically clear of smoke for most of the time. So it was clear in, clear out, compared to the Dog Mountain fire that everybody's aware of, when we just had that smoke just settled right into the valley. We had a very good situation with the Cameron Lake fire.
yeah, okay, thank you. Then I believe that brings our meeting to a close. So we'll adjourn the meeting at this point. Thank you, everybody, for your participation and great information and great questions.
Mr. Chair, before we adjourn, can I just ask that we just articulate the date of the next meeting at the end of each meeting so that we can kind of be aware of that going forward? And I believe that we had asked that if we could have kind of a summary or overview of all of the meeting dates coming up, so everyone was aware of when those meetings are. Although I know they're scheduled at a certain day and time of the month, it just doesn't hurt, I think, to have a summary of those dates for people, if
And-
that's possible.
And Shelley, you're absolutely right. And I know that it has been done. So I'll turn it over to Jenny because she's has the latest information. And it's according to a schedule.
Thank you. And I even see Wendy up here, so she might be able to confirm what I hope I am accurately saying. I believe we have January 18th, April 18th, July might be 18th as well, the third Thursday of that month, and October 17th. Those are the dates for 2024, and we're going to be incorporating them into our full ACRD calendar of committee events, so they are set ahead. How did I do it?
Very close, Jenny. Yeah. And I will send out an email. I could do that before Christmas or in the next coming weeks if you'd like.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Meeting's adjourned.